Randumb Rants. Like and subscribe. And today, we talking about Gerard Jackson from Boomerang. Random fact, right? My first episode was supposed to be Gerard. But it wasn't. And now I believe we're like on video 56 or 57 now, right? But needless to say, it got done, right? All you gotta do is have a plan out here. And of course, you know, Boomerang is classic soundtrack, right? Most of it, I believe, most of the songs are Babyface and Tony Braxton. You know, Babyface wrote a lot of it. I believe the soundtrack was released on LaFace Records. And you know, it went gold in August of 1992 when it came out, and by April of 95 it was triple platinum. Okay, classic soundtrack, right? Now, as far as the songs, right, we have a few low-key grinders in the lineup. You know, we got the Boys to Men, End of the Road. Of course you know that, right? PM Dawn, I Die Without You. Tribe Called Quest, Hot Sex on the Platter. I know you guys remember that one, right? But they have two bangers on this soundtrack. That Tony Braxton, Love should have brought you home last night. You should have been with me, should have been right by my side, baby. Yeah, I mean, was she not filling Anita Baker's void in that song? Or my favorite, now this was my favorite off the soundtrack, that Johnny Gill, There You Go. Y'all don't remember? I lose control with you, 'cause I can't help myself. You're like nobody else. What can I do? There you go. There you go. There you go. And here I come. Here I come. Yeah, y'all don't remember? Classic 92 music, right? Yeah. Oh, Rant's gonna hit them notes, right? Rant's gonna hit them notes, right? But this is about Gerard, one of my favorite side characters of all time, right? And, well, before I even get started, let's just start from the beginning, right? And we can see a young picture of Gerard Jr., of course, with his mother Yvonne Jackson and Gerard Jackson Sr. And Gerard was born in Detroit, Michigan. It's mentioned in the movie. But his parents moved to Queens, New York. Cambria Heights, to be exact. Yep. And of course, you know, when he moved to Queens, Gerard meets his friends, Tyler and Marcus. And I mean, of course, Gerard, he ends up going to Christ the King High School, right? Private school out Queens. Graduates. And him and Marcus, they end up attending and graduating NYU. Right. Now, Tyler, he went to college too. Tyler went to Howard. You know, Tyler was very pro-black in the movie, but we'll get on him, right? Like I said, let's just stay on Gerard, right? Now, understand this. Gerard knows Marcus, right? And if you guys are familiar with my rants, hopefully this isn't your first episode. If it is, congratulations. If it's your 15th, then you already know. I talk about a specific male on my channel. These males are called poon hounds. Okay? Poon hounds. These males are known to be with different women throughout the time you see them. They usually think with other parts of their body other than their brain, if you get what I'm saying. Poon hounds, right? Marcus is the God Almighty Poonhound. Everybody's seen the movie that's watching this. We already know this, right? Gerard is this man's best friend. So understand why they're coming up. Gerard is getting a bunch of sad chicks just off Marcus. You know, the two mans. Sometimes they on three mans. Tyler get in. You know, but Marcus is always the one setting it up, right? You know, and when they graduate, right, they all get jobs at a, you know, so we already know, right? They get jobs at a nice all-black company, but we already know Boomerang is famous for the all-black cast, right? If you live in towns like Atlanta, Georgia, what they say, Prince George's County, Maryland, I believe, all black cities, right? So some people have seen this before, right? But all three are deemed successful. They have jobs, they're paying taxes, you know, they have good jobs, actually. They're in corporate America, I guess you could say, you know? And getting back on Gerard met a young lady by the name of Sherry. And Sherry is actually mentioned in one scene, but she's not mentioned by name, right? It's a scene where Gerard gets very uncomfortable. We're going to touch on that scene, right? But I'll, you know, fill you guys in on what actually happens between them two before we get into the actual events of the movie, right? So Gerard was taking Sherry very serious. He was thinking about proposing to her, right? But understand, Gerard really wants kids, and he has a low sperm count, right? And when they went to the doctor, of course, Sherry found that out, that it wasn't her, it was him, right? And Sherry started cheating on Gerard with one of the guardian angel guys, the guys that do the guardian angels, right? And like I said, it's mentioned in the movie, we're going to touch on it, but I had to let you guys know his history before we even get there, right? Now, we're going to get into the movie, right? Because that leads us to the movie, right? Like I said, Gerard is working. He's actually working in the accounting department, right? For the agency, of course, right? The same agency that Marcus and Tyler works for too, right? Now, understand, Marcus worked his way up. He's a little bit higher than Gerard, right? But Marcus has always been a little bit more higher than his friends as far as status, grades, and even females, right? And we're about to get into the events of the movie, right? But understand this, we're watching this from Gerard's perspective, okay? Everybody's seen this movie a million times, but you've never seen it like this, right? And now we're at the opening credits, right? And Marcus is walking in, and he sees his boys Tyler and Gerard, and Marcus tells them he's going to catch up with him at lunch. And if you notice, Gerard is sitting down because that's his office. Like I said, he's an accountant. It says it on the door when Marcus walks past, right? And now we're at lunch, and we get to see the personalities of Tyler, Gerard, and Marcus, right? Tyler says, yo, man, I saw something on cable last night. Freaked me out. You know, there was this woman, right? Baby had body. She's lying there naked. You can see everything. But she had a stick, man. It messed my head up. It was like a 976 number for hermaphrodites. And Gerard is looking like, what the hell is Tyler into? But, you know, he was hip. He was like, yeah, you talking about the 976 chicks with sticks number? And Marcus is like, ew. How could you put something like that in your mental Rolodex? Closet freak? And Gerard is like, look, I'm just joking now. And Tyler says, look, I swear I feel like it's a world we don't know about. I be reading stuff in those Penthouse magazines, and stuff like that never happens. And Gerard says, oh, stuff like that never happens to anybody except for Marcus. And Marcus stops them and says, hey, wait a minute. The only reason stuff like that happens to me is because I pay attention to women and y'all don't. And Tyler says, now, Marcus, I pay attention to women. And Marcus cuts him off. He's like, no, see, you have to watch them. You got to study their movement. It's an art form. And Gerard says, man, I can't do that, man. And Tyler says, that's why you don't get none now. And Marcus agrees, saying exactly. And Gerard is like, Tyler, there's other things in life besides sex. Come on, how about sharing commitment? You know, you should get in touch with your feminine side like me. And Marcus says, all right, now you sounding soft. And everybody's laughing at him, right? And Tyler's like, yeah, borderline witch. And Gerard says, Tyler, I know what your issue is. You need more romance and less Doberman. And Marcus says, yeah, that is true. That's true. You have too much dog and not enough romance in your life. And Tyler says, Marcus, don't even try that. You don't have no romance. And Marcus says, hold on now. I'm the most romantic cat both of y'all know. When I meet a woman, I bring candy, I get flowers, I'm soft music. And Gerard says, all right, Mr. Milkbone. And Marcus says, no, I'm Mr. Romance when I meet a woman. And once I hit it, I lose interest. But it ain't my fault. And Gerard says, oh, so in other words, as soon as you have an orgasm, all of the romance just skeets out of you. And Marcus says, well, but you can't put that on me, though. And this random lady just walks up and flirts with Marcus, right? Asks him how he's doing. And Marcus is like, I'm good. You know, you have a lovely accent. Where are you from? And she tells him she's from Holland, you know, and then she smiles at him, of course, right? And walks off. And Gerard says under his breath, well, I'm from Detroit. You know, of course, implying what I mentioned earlier, right? And Tyler says, that's crazy. Stuff like that never happens to me. And Marcus says, that's because you call them witches all the time. And Gerard adds on, yeah, you need to straighten up, Tyler. Show some respect. I mean, come on. And Tyler laughs and he calls over the waitress. And he's like, yeah, I ordered the duck, right? What vegetable comes with that? And the waitress says, ooh, that's a good one. It's sauteed asparagus spears, and it's good. It's our special. Delicious. You'll love them. And she walks off, and of course, Tyler gets offended. He's like, come on. Asparagus spears? If we wasn't black, it would have been asparagus tips. Man, it's racial. And Marcus says, oh, come on, man. You tripping now. And now Marcus is distracted by his next victim he plans to hunch on, right? And we can hear Gerard telling Tyler, hey man, what you need to do is get in touch with Tyler. How often do you tell yourself you love yourself? And Tyler says, what? Ninja, please. Now, of course, like I said, Marcus is distracted by his next victim, right? And of course, in true Poonhound Marcus fashion, he knocks her down. Okay, like 10 pins at a bowling alley. Knocks her down, right? And, of course, you guys remember, he's laying with her at the end. She's asleep. Takes a peek at her feet. She has ugly feet, right? So he gets up out of bed and gets up out of there, right? He doesn't plan on speaking to her again, right? This is Marcus. And now we're back at the restaurant, and Marcus is telling his boys about last night. And Gerard starts by saying, hey, Marcus, that lady was beautiful. And Marcus replies, yeah, she was beautiful, but her feet was jacked up. And Tyler says, really? And Marcus says, oh, yes. I pulled the covers back after I was done, and it was hammer time. See, I should have known something was up. I saw her shoes, and they had little bumps on the top of her shoe when I met her. But I thought maybe it was an old shoe or something. But you would never think a woman that fine would have hammer time in her shoe. And Tyler says, come on, man, you're not banging her feet? Damn! And Gerard says, look, I hope I'm not out of line here, but don't you think you're just a little bit too picky, Marcus? What happened with Tracy? And Marcus says, Gerard, you met that girl. She's not very smart. And Tyler says, come on, man, you're not banging her brains? And Marcus says, well, I'm looking for perfection. And the next time we see Gerard is 10 minutes later in the movie. We're at the corporate launch party for the Strange and Breuer Cosmetics merger. And we see Marcus and the crew at the party. And Tyler asks Marcus, so, yo, man, you gonna quit, right? And Gerard steps in and says, of course he's going to quit, man. You can't take a smaller office. And Tyler says, that's right. Step to her and tell her, look, girl, I'm out of here. And this is all in reference to Jacqueline, okay, who's over top of Marcus. But Marcus is head over heels for, right? And Marcus says, yeah, that's what I'm thinking about doing. Then stops himself and tells his boys, there she is right there. And now the crew sees Jacqueline, right? And Tyler says, oh, that's her? Psych. You can't quit. You gotta stay. And Marcus says, yeah, she's bad. And Jacqueline walks over and says, hello, Marcus. And Marcus replies back with, hello, Jacqueline. And they begin to tell each other they look great. And Marcus introduces Jacqueline to his friends, Tyler and Gerard. And Jacqueline introduces Miss Angela Lewis. She mentions that Angela works in their art department and she's very talented. And Jacqueline recommended that she works with Marcus, right? And then we see a familiar face. Michael Flash Turner. Yep, from the Five Heartbeats. He's hosting this event actually. But don't worry, we'll speak more about him on the Big Red episode. So you guys don't even have to worry about that, right? And now we see Marcus walking around looking for Jacqueline. And Angela sees him and says, "Hey, you look lost. Can I help you?" And Marcus says, "Oh, I'm just looking for Jacqueline." And Angela's like, "You interested in her, huh?" And Marcus says, "Well, now why would you say that?" And Angela says, "Because most men are. I mean, look at her. She's fantastic. If I were a guy, I would be interested in Jacqueline. Not that I have those thoughts, because I don't. I'm just saying she's attractive and I would probably go out with her." And Marcus says, "I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. See, women do stuff like this. You see another woman and then you say, oh, she's cute and her hair is nice. Guys don't do stuff like that. We don't look at another guy and say, oh, look at his shoulders, you know." And now Angela's trying to have dialogue now, right? She's like, "Sure you have. You saw a movie before. You saw a man and said, oh, he's a nice looking guy. You have." And Marcus says, "I can't believe I'm having this conversation. Yeah, I saw Lady Sings the Blues and saw Billy D. Williams, but I always thought he was cool. I never wanted to get with him." Then he sees Jacqueline on the escalator, right? And he cuts the convo with Angela short. And he tells Angela, "Hey, I got someone you should meet." Then Marcus is like, "Hey, Gerard, come here. I think I met someone that's perfect for you. Why don't you come here and chit chat?" And mind you, he introduced them and was looking at Jacqueline the whole time. True poonhound, right? And we see Gerard with Angela looking awkward and nervous, as if he was scared to speak to her, right? And the next time we see the gentleman Gerard, he's showing up with flowers and he says, "Wow, you look great." And we see it's Angela. Yeah, Gerard then talked his way into a date. And Angela says, "Thanks, you look neat." Just like that, pause and all, right? And then she invites him in and Gerard says, "These are for you." Of course, giving her the flowers. He's a gentleman, right? And Gerard is amazed and impressed. He's like, "Wow, you did all these decorations yourself?" And Angela says, "Yep, every bit of it. I know you may think it's a little weird and you may not understand." And Gerard says, No. It's eclectic. See, understand, Angela is an artist, okay? She has a creative gene. She's a creator. So naturally, she's sensitive about her work. But understand this though. Gerard is trying to get some potato skins. And Angela asks, "Do you like it?" And Gerard says, "Very interesting." And he notices one piece on the wall and he asks about it. And Angela says, "Oh, that's a goalie mask I got from Africa." And Gerard says, "Oh, I didn't know Africans was into hockey." And Angela says, "Oh, no, goalie is the name of the tribe." And Gerard's like, "Oh, it's a joke, sweetie." And Angela starts to fake laugh. But she's really thinking like, oh, this guy's not a deep thinker. And I could never do anything with him, right? And now we don't see what happens, but we're going to assume they have small talk about the job and their zodiac signs and stupid little pointless stuff that Gerard is pretending to care about, right? But understand, Gerard is super self-conscious because he knows Angela looks better than Sherry, right? But Angela has already told him, "Oh, you're a Gemini. You're indecisive." And all that leads to this point, right? And we see Angela and Gerard, they're trying to decide on what they want to order to eat, right? And Angela's asking, like, would you like Italian or Indian? And Gerard says, "Oh, that's what women like, a man that decides, huh? I'm going to choose Chinese." And Angela says, "No." And Gerard says, "Oh, that's cool. I mean, whatever you say. Sorry." And does an awkward laugh, right? And Angela fake laughs with him. And Gerard says, I know, I'm being indecisive, right? And Angela's looking at him like, yeah, I'm wasting my time. And Gerard says, can I ask you a personal question? And Angela says, sure. And Gerard says, do you like kids? Angela says, I love kids. I paint kids. And Gerard asks, so do you want a lot of kids and to get married and whatnot? And now, you got to understand, Gerard comes from a married two-parent household. So his upbringing causes him to look for different qualities in a female, right? And Angela says, I want a huge family, at least 10 kids. And Gerard says, 10 kids? That's not a family, that's an African village. Now be mindful, be mindful, be mindful. Sherry left Gerard because of his low count. So when Angela says she wants 10 kids, that scares Gerard. That scares him. Because he's like, I don't even know if I'm able to provide what she wants, And he thinks she's attractive, of course, but she wants 10 kids, right? Gotta understand that. And now, mind you, the camera goes to Marcus and Jacqueline, but we're going to assume that Gerard is over there talking about like numbers. Mind you, he's an accountant guy, right? He's talking about numbers and stuff that Angela just don't really care about, right? And they're probably watching the Knicks game, right? But they don't really share the same interests. Okay, they're not clicking. It just is what it is, right? And now we see Gerard. He's about to leave, right? And Gerard says, well, hey, I had a wonderful evening. And Angela says, thank you, so did I. And Gerard says, even though we didn't get to eat dinner, now Gerard is being sarcastic, but he's hungry for real. That's a fact. They never ate, right? Angela says, yes, next week I'll take control and just order. And Gerard says, oh, so next week dinner. And Angela, who's forced to say yes now, right? She says, you got it. Because she didn't really say yes. She didn't want to, commit to that, right? And Gerard says, followed by butt naked sex. Just kidding. Like, Gerard, you wasn't kidding. Dude, we see Angela. Like, I honestly can't believe a dude who couldn't make a choice on what he wanted to eat would be that bold to make that joke, to be honest with you, right? But Angela's awkwardly laughing through all this, okay? And you gotta understand, see, Angela is a nice girl. See, the average girl would have said, hell no, Gerard. But she didn't. And the fact that she didn't, that still gives a person like Gerard hope. Because he made that creep joke, right? And then we see Gerard say, oh, well, this is the most difficult part of the evening. Knowing he's been waiting for it all day, right? And Angela says, hey, I got an idea. Let's just count backwards from 5 and go for it. And Gerard says, all right, close your eyes. And they count from 5 and they do this awkward kiss and then they fake laugh, right? And Angela says, look, it's cool. I'll take control. And she grabs Gerard's collar and kisses him. And Gerard says, okay, I'll see you next week. And Gerard pulls another lame move. He keeps popping back and he's like, adios. Arrivederci, ciao Bella. And Angela is like, okay, bye. And does a wild, bad impression of Asian people, right? I'm not going to do it. Rants isn't going to do it because I think it may be offensive, right? But anyway, she says, it means, I'm sorry I popped you, but I thought you were trying to steal from my store. Like, Angela, stop. You're clearly not a comedian. You're a great artist, but you're not a comedian, right? But Gerard lies and says how very funny and finally leaves, right? Because remember, he's trying to get some potato skin. So anything Angela says is going to be funny, right? And now we see Tyler, Marcus, and Gerard in the gym working out, right? And Tyler says, hey, I think she's a lesbo, implying that because of course, Jacqueline has yet to let Marcus tap. And Marcus always taps, right? And Gerard says, hey, the term is gay. And just because a woman won't sleep with you doesn't mean she's homosexual. And Marcus says, yeah, she's not a lesbian, man. And Tyler says, well, it's been 3 weeks. If I was dating somebody like that, I'll wait 8-9 months. And Gerard says, you can wait 8 or 9 years. You would never have no woman that fine. See, Gerard is confident because of that kiss, right? And the fact that she didn't shoot his little hot sex joke down, right? But what you don't know is Tyler can't take a joke. In fact, Tyler's the type that he'll go right after your juggler and pull your card. And that's exactly what he does to Gerard. He immediately brings up Sherry. He was like, you a wild boy. At least my lady ain't leave me for no damn guardian angel. And that triggers Gerard. He starts working out all intense, saying, see, Tyler, why you doing that? Why you doing that? I would have punished you if he would have tried that karate stuff. He's mad now, right? And Marcus jumps in and says, see, you gonna get a brother a heart attack. Just breathe. And Tyler says, no, I'm just playing. But can I ask you something, Gerard? Did you bang Angela yet? And Marcus says, that's a good question. And Gerard says, Angela and I are just trying to get to know each other on a platonic level, you know. And Tyler says, oh, so in other words, you didn't hit the twizzot. And Gerard says, twizzot? Is that another one of your little colloquialisms for vagina? See, I know what you're getting at. You think just because I got a low sperm count that I can't function normally. And Tyler says, yes. I don't understand how it's low. You don't do anything. It should be high. And Marcus says, come on, Tyler, leave the brother alone. He clearly got a problem. And Gerard says, yeah, well, a very known doctor told me if I wear the correct underwear, it can cool my testicle walls and reverse my condition. And Tyler says, oh, okay, well, let me get you some icy hat. And Marcus starts laughing. And Gerard says, hey, well, at least I had sex in the 90s. And Marcus says, he got you. You know, he got you on that one. And Tyler says, don't even try. You know I gets mine. And Marcus says, oh, please, Tyler. You're the loudest guy we know. And you never have a woman. We're 45 minutes into the movie and you only asked the waitress about some vegetables. That's the only interaction we've seen you with the lady. You know? And now we see Tyler, Marcus, and Gerard. They're in a store that specialize in professional wear for men, right? And they're shopping and whatnot, and Marcus just tapped Jacqueline, so he naturally telling his boys and whatnot, right? He's saying, yeah, she's amazing. She even have amazing feet. And Tyler says, oh, well, how's the cookie? And Gerard says, that's classless. And the store worker walks up and asks if, he can help. And Marcus says, oh, we just browsing. And the guy gives him a funny look, right? And they notice it, but they brush it off. And Tyler says, look, I'm a realist. If the cookie is good, everything else will fall into place. And Marcus is whipped. He's telling his boys it's more than sex with her. I dig her. I like her spirit, her mind, her everything. She's bad. She can be Miss Graham. You think I'm joking, And Tyler and Gerard starts laughing. And Gerard says, oh, wow, Marcus is in love. And Tyler just so happens to see a jacket he likes. And he says, oh, I'm getting this. And the store worker steps in and says, oh, that jacket is $1,800. No refunds. Mind you, it's 1992. So $1,800, is $4,300 in today's money, with inflation and whatnot, right? And Tyler says, well, what you think, I can't pay for it? And the store worker says, well, there's no layaway plan. And Marcus steps in and says, look, we're okay. We don't need any help. And the store worker says, we don't keep cash in the store. And looks stupid and steps off, right? And Marcus says, this is racial, man. Don't worry about that. And this is right up Tyler's alley because he's pro-black and everything, right? And Gerard says, no refund. Like, what does he expect us to do? Like, take the jacket back after we already wore it and stank it up? Who would do that? And they're walking, and Marcus says, yes, they just can't get over the natural fear of black men they have, See, for example, And the white store worker jumps frantically, of course. And Marcus was like, look, see, he thought it was the end of the world. Now, we gotta fast forward, but I gotta keep you in the loop right now. This doesn't have too much to do with Gerard, but it has to be said in the story, right? So, Angela asks Jacqueline about Marcus' reputation. Now, she already suspects that Jacqueline, has had intimate relations with Marcus, right? And Jacqueline says, let me guess, Boney T told you? Now, Boney T is the nosy intern that knows everybody's business, right? And Jacqueline tells Angela, well, I can say from experience that Marcus' reputation is well deserved. And Angela is like, oh, wow. And Jacqueline is like, oh, yeah, he's wonderful. And he just so happens to have the best butt I ever saw on a male. And Marcus walks in on this conversation and he knows he's being talked about. And Marcus is like, what y'all talking about? Y'all blushing. And Angela is embarrassed. So naturally she's leaving. And Marcus says, I know. It's Gerard. He hit it, didn't he? And Angela says, Gerard couldn't hit it if he had a bat. Okay? Now remember, Marcus is head over heels on Jacqueline since she's let him tap, of course, right? And she's giving Marcus the same energy that Marcus gives girls. Hence why the movie is called Boomerang. What goes around comes back around. Unless you're Gerard, right? And you see Marcus, he's waiting by the phone. He makes plans for them. And he gets stood up, right? And Angela notices it. Because why mess with lame Gerard when you can get sloppy 14ths with Marcus, right? And Angela has the audacity to pull Jacqueline to the side and tell her, whatever you're doing to Marcus, it's affecting his work. And Jacqueline, whom is a boss, says, what I'm doing to Marcus? Okay, well, whatever I'm doing to Marcus seems to be affecting you personally. Am I mistaken? And Angela says, no, Jackie, and does this little friendly old pal shoulder tap. And Jacqueline's looking at her like, did you just touch me, witch? And Angela's trying to iron out all the wrinkles, copping please, saying, no, it's just affecting his work, that's all. And Jacqueline says, well, we don't want to do that now. And Angela says, thanks, Jack, and touches her again. And now Jacqueline is like, oh, I'm never wearing this suit jacket again, right? And of course, this leads to a terrible Strong J commercial, and Marcus taking the blame because he let the guy with the accent take over, right? And Jacqueline gives Marcus a few weeks off. So this leads to a date that I honestly feel like Gerard should have went on. This is how I know Gerard was talking about himself or the job too much at Angela's house, because he should have known about this part of her life. And I'm sure Angela brought it up that night and Gerard probably just brushed it off, right? But we see Angela dragging Marcus to her non-profit organization where she teaches kids in New York art who can't afford the classes, right? And Marcus really enjoys it. It takes his mind off Jacqueline. Now, also in this scene, we meet a young Michael Peterson, whom we will talk about eventually. Just give me some time. You guys got to give me some time now. Now, this leads us to probably the greatest part of this movie, right? And it's Thanksgiving, and we see Marcus is hosting it because he has the best house. Clearly, he's the main character of the movie, right? And Angela's preparing the food. And Marcus asks, so you ready to meet Gerard's parents? And Angela says, no, I'm not. I honestly don't want them to think we're a couple. And Marcus tells Angela, Gerard ain't even that close to his father. And Angela says, I knew it. Gerard is a fun guy, isn't he? Mind you, she's asking Marcus because she never cared to get to know him, right? And then she says, it's his father and his mother that are the square ones. And Marcus says, well... But we hear the doorbell, right? And Tyler, who's already there, answers the door, and it's Gerard and his parents. And Gerard walks over to Angela and gives her a friendly gentleman kiss on the cheek and tells her she looks great. And Angela, says thank you and returns the compliment. And Gerard embarrassedly says, my parents are here. And Angela says, you look just like your dad, Gerard. And Gerard says, thanks, with a funny face, and we hear Gerard mom telling everyone she bought the chitlins, right? And it's a big painter's bucket full, right? And Marcus says, oh, look, Angela, Gerard mom bought us a whole trough of chitlins. And we see Gerard Sr. lay his eyes on Angela, right? And he walks over there and kisses her hand. He says, oh, this little girl you've been talking about, Abatha. And Angela corrects him and tell him, no, it's Angela Lewis. And Gerard Sr. says, yeah, that's what I said. And Gerard mom says, yeah, ain't she pretty? She looked like one of Marcus' girls. And of course, Gerard is thrown off, right? And Marcus tries to change the subject. He's like, hey, Agatha, being funny, of course, go in the kitchen to help Gerard's mom with these chitlins, So Mr. Jackson, he walks over to Marcus, gives him a hug, and Marcus is like, hey man, it's good to see you. Every year you do something new. Where did you get that mushroom shirt? And Mr. Jackson says, well, I was trying to impress you now, but the secret is you gotta coordinate. Most people don't coordinate. See, you gotta coordinate. And we see Gerard looking over his mom and Angela, of course, and Angela says, interesting. And Gerard mom says, yeah, see, I told you they don't stink when you pull the membrane out. And Gerard, of course, is embarrassed, right? She's referring to the chitlins, of course, that she brought over, right? And we go back to Gerard Pops talking to Marcus saying, see, when you saw me, you saw the mushroom shirt. But I got the belt. And Marcus is like, oh my God. Hey, Gerard, did you know your pops got the matching mushroom belt? And Gerard says, yes. You know, he's clearly embarrassed, right? Then Mr. Jackson tells Marcus, hey, you don't stop there, though. See, you got to keep going. Then he opens up that jacket, and Marcus is like, oh my goodness. Hey, Gerard, did you know on the inside was special mushroom? And Gerard says, yes, you know, he's mad, right? And now we're eating Thanksgiving dinner, right? And Mr. Jackson is like, simply delicious, Marcus. I'll be telling Yvonne she need to take some cooking lessons. All she cook is pork. We done had every part of the pig down from the rooter to the tutor. And Marcus says, dang, the whole pig, huh? And Miss Jackson says, you didn't marry me for my cooking. And Gerard Sr. starts giggling and says, you got that right, baby. That's how we got little Junior over there. Bang, 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 bang. And Gerard, mad, he yells, must you embarrass me in front of my friends on every possible occasion? And Mr. Jackson says, you see there? That's your son. Private school got him sedity like that. Of course, referring to Christ the King, you know. And Marcus tells Gerard, yeah, man, chill, that's your father. And Mr. Jackson, Angela made this meal. It wasn't me. I can't take credit for it. And everyone gives her praise. And Mr. Jackson says, good pick, Junior. And Gerard says, Daddy, I told you that Angela and I are just friends. And his father says, starts to suck his teeth like, just friends, huh? And both Gerard and Angela says, yes, just friends at the same time. And Gerard mom says, leave it alone, honey. They done told you 500 times, just let it go. And Gerard father says, fine, we can change the subject. Now, Marcus, I here's a girl at the office that got you wussy whipped. And the table goes crazy, right? Of course, Gerard, you know, he's trying to make a little face, right? And Mr. Jackson licks his fingers and say, why don't you reverse it? Don't be wussy whipped. Whip that wussy. Bang, 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 bang. And while he's doing that, you know, while he's saying that, Gerard mom is saying, whoa, Daddy, calm down. Whoa, Daddy, I heard they call you Sweet Willie. Give me some. Give me some. And Marcus, you know, he's making a face now, right? But understand this now, right? Because Marcus is a poon hound, okay? He is the poon hound, right? And Marcus has known Gerard and Tyler for a long time. They're boys. They know each other's insecurities, right? But understand this. Marcus knew that Gerard had to have told his father that. That's the only way that he would have known that. He kept that in the back of his mind. He was like, okay, this is how Gerard really feels about me. He thinks I'm wussy whipped. Okay, so now I know. If the opportunity ever comes, I'll hit Gerard's chick. That's how I'll get him back. You know, Marcus is not going to play fair. Okay? He's not going to play fair. So this is in the back of his mind. Like, okay, now I know it's no holds bar. You telling your father I'm wussy whipped? True. We'll see who's wussy whipped when I hit your chick, right? And now we see Marcus walking, you know, to Gerard, asking him, hey, why you looking down, man? And Gerard says, man, my parents been in that bathroom an hour. And Marcus says, so what? And Gerard says, well, they in there hitting it. And Marcus says, your parents are smoking a joint in my bathroom? And Gerard says, no, they in there hunching, man. And Marcus starts laughing. And we see Gerard, father, walks out, you know, with his coat inside out, you know, asking what's for dessert. And his mother walks out, calmly chewing her gum like she's innocent. And Marcus just looks at him and, you know, gives him a hug. Because if this hasn't been a Thanksgiving that Gerard is going to remember forever, Marcus is going to make sure he does by the end of the night. But we're going to get to that, right? And now we see Gerard. He makes his fatal mistake that will change his friendship with Marcus forever, right? Angela asks Gerard, are you sure you don't want me to go with you? And Gerard tells Angela, No. He's about to run his parents home before they embarrass him more, right? And he gives her a friendly kiss and says he had a great time. He'll call, I'll call you tomorrow, Angela. And everybody leaves, right? And Marcus is left with a bunch of dishes. And he takes Angela up on her help, right, that she offered, right? And this leads to them being tired, right? And Marcus and Angela, they're Trekkies, okay? That means they love Star Trek, the show, right? And that leads to them falling asleep, right, on the show. And I don't could you blame them? The show is boring. You're never getting a Captain Kirk rant. That's never happening, right? It's never happening unless you guys pay me, right? It's neither here nor there. Neither here nor there. So they fall asleep. And Marcus wakes up first, and he's slick. He's sly. Remember, he remembers what Gerard's father said earlier, right? He's like, I'm wussy whipped, right? Okay. So he kisses Angela on her forehead just to see if she'll go for it, right? And she wakes up and she starts kissing him. Because, of course, she wants sloppy 37s anyway. This was her dream, Maybe she'll get a promotion now, I guess Gerard couldn't do anything for this lady, so she's like, let me, hit a higher upper, right? It's corporate world, right? And now we're at the pool hall. And Tyler's off his pro-black stuff. He says, this game of pool is racial. The white ball, it knocks the red ball, it knocks the yellow ball. But the game is over when the white ball knocks the black ball off the table. Now, why is that? And Gerard says, I don't know, but I'm sure you'll tell me, my brother. And Tyler says, well, it's because of the white man's fear of sexual potency of black balls. And Marcus faking like he understands, and Gerard tells Tyler, when you do Oprah show, I'm going to be the front row, right? And Tyler steps off to get the next round of beer, and we see Marcus and Gerard, right? And Gerard, of course, referring to Tyler, saying he's getting worse, we got to find him a woman quick, implying that like he himself has one, right? And Marcus can't even look him in his eyes, and he asks Gerard, hey, how's things with you and Angela? And Gerard says, oh, we cool, man. We went out a couple times. She was getting so involved, and I just said, I'm gonna pull back, man. And Marcus says, oh, cool. And Gerard doubles down. He says, yeah, I told her, do your thing, see other men, because I'm a see other woman. I just didn't want to break her heart right off. I let her down easy. He's lying, right? And Marcus says, okay, good. So you don't mind if she goes out with other guys? And Gerard says, oh, hell no. What you think about hooking her up with Tyler? And starts laughing, right? And Marcus says, no, nothing like that, And Gerard says, why you asking, man? And Marcus says, oh, I was just curious, And then it clicks to Gerard. He says, I don't believe this. Why you asking, Marcus? See, you can't even look me in my eye. And he asks him straight up, did you sleep with Angela? And Marcus burns this man house down and tells him, yes, I did. And it takes the air out of Gerard. You guys got to watch this scene. It takes the air out of him. Gerard shakes his head. He's like, he asks Marcus, he's like, man, why you always got to have all the girls, Marcus? His voice is crackling. And Marcus says, you just said 2 seconds ago you didn't care. You didn't care who she was with. You find out it's me. Now you tripping. And Gerard says, I don't want to hear that BS, man. This is different. Angela's a nice girl. And Marcus says, what, so I can't be with a nice girl? And Gerard says, hell no, man. All you gonna do is dog her out like you do every woman in your life. So tell me why Angela, she got nice feet. And Marcus says, no, it has nothing to do with her feet. I care about her. And Gerard says, man, you don't care about nobody but yourself, man. And throws the pool stick down and walks out, right? And now we see Marcus is in a whole relationship with Angela. She's living there, painting pictures of his butt that Jacqueline mentioned earlier, right? But when Marcus gets a call from Jacqueline, and Angela just so happens to answer the phone, Marcus tells Jacqueline, oh, that's just Angela, she just stopped by. And during this convo, of course, Marcus has to go out, of course, with Jacqueline, right? And he tells Angela, says, oh, you don't have a problem with that, do you? And she lies and says no. And of course, he hits Jacqueline because he's Marcus, right? And we hear that classic Johnny Gill song again. There you go, there you go, there you go, there you go. And here I come, here I come. Y'all already know, we did that earlier, right? And now Marcus sneaks in, and of course Angela is hip, and she says the classic line, "Love should have brought your ass home last night." And she slaps him. Like, nobody feels bad for you, Angela. You got what you deserve. You wanted sloppy 98s, okay? He's hit the whole Harlem, the whole Manhattan, half of Brooklyn. He's Marcus Graham. Like, come on, the movie's about him, right? But the last time we see Gerard, right, Tyler is frying some chicken over his house and he invites everybody over. But of course, Marcus isn't aware, and Marcus gets there first, and there's a knock on the door, and Gerard sees Marcus and he's thrown off, of course, obviously, right? And Gerard immediately goes out the back door to the rooftop, and Marcus goes out there and talks to him. And Gerard asks him, he's like, have you seen Angela lately? And Marcus tells him, no, I hear she's over at Barton and Dobbs now. And Gerard says, yeah, I hear she got promoted to creative director. And Marcus says, well, where do you hear that from? Gerard says, Boney T told me, And they laugh, and Marcus apologizes to him, telling him, I love you. You're like a brother to me. I've known you my whole life. It happened. I'm sorry, and I feel bad. How long are you going to have me out here begging? And of course, Gerard gives in, right? And Tyler comes out there, right? And you guys already know. You guys saw the end of the movie, right? Angela and Marcus, they get together. This is 1992. On Rants, we're realistic people, okay? Do you honestly think that Marcus didn't cheat on Angela by 95? Tupac was still alive, and they was definitely already broken up. Marcus didn't cheat. Marcus probably didn't pass this girl all types of diseases, Now, as far as Gerard, right? What happens at the end of the movie? Now, this is crazy, right? Because Marcus, they're boys. Marcus and Gerard, they're boys, and they're friends from what you see, right? But, come on, man. Luckily, Angela doesn't work for the company anymore, right? So it makes it easier for Gerard to go to work. Granted, he hasn't been talking to Marcus until they squashed it at Tyler's house. But it has to be awkward. Oh my gosh. He's bringing up Angela when they're out. If they're still hanging out, they can't be click tight like they once was after this situation. And it all happened because the father, said a little too much, trying to be funny, and Marcus, he don't take jokes like that. He's the main character. He's going to hit your chick, so it was a very awkward situation, for Gerard. He's still cool with Marcus because Marcus is the coolest guy he knows. Let's just be realistic. Coolest guy he knows. Gerard eventually found a wife and whatnot, and they did have a child, but we gotta just talk about something. Let's just nip this in the bud real quick. It's Randumb Rants, right? And you're watching this movie, right? It's Boomerang, right? And you're admiring Marcus, right? You're like, man, he's getting all these women, he's the man, and you're thinking wow, Gerard comes off silly, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. Gerard didn't deserve that. He didn't deserve that. I know he might have told his father that Marcus was acting wussy whipped, and he was, because that was out of Marcus' character. So it was a joke between him and his father, right? But he didn't deserve it. He really liked Angela, and Marcus didn't. He just came across Angela, and they end up having a relationship. He claimed that he liked her, he loved her, but come on, man. Let's be realistic, man. He didn't like her. She looked cute, but Marcus is a poon hound. We've already discussed that. And unfortunately, Gerard had to suffer. But it's a reason why you love Marcus in this movie. It's the reason why you admire Marcus in this movie. Because you're not Marcus. Yeah, you're probably more Gerard than you are Marcus. Facts. You are more like Gerard than you are Marcus. And that's why this is one of your favorite movies. That's why you admire it. Come on now. Random Rants. Like and subscribe, man.